Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that any mobile phones are switched off. Should the fire alarm sound, all guests must leave through either the main doors at the rear of the Guildhall or marked exits to the side and congregate in St. Helens Square. Thank you.
You please be seated. Welcome to the annual meeting of the City of York Council on this, the 26th day of May, 2022. Finally, back in our Guildhall. And so as we begin this meeting, the first item is I invite any declarations of interest. At this point, members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other registerable interests they might have in respect of business on this agenda, if they've not already done so in advance on the register of interests. Thank you. Our second item, the appointment of Lord Mayor. To appoint a Lord Mayor for the municipal year 2022-2023. Can I first make sure that any mobile phones are switched off? In the event that the fire alarm sounds, we're not expecting it to, we will leave through either the main doors or the rear of the Guildhall or the marked exits to the side, and we will congregate in St. Helens Square. But as I say, we're not expecting that. So I invite Councillor Looker, who will now, Councillor Galvin, who will now propose a motion for the nomination of Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff Lady, members of Council, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, of course, boys and girls. It is indeed my pleasure today to propose David Carr as our next Lord Mayor. David was, as some of you know, elected to the council in 2015, representing Copmanthorpe, where David and his young wife moved there in 1981. As time went by following the election, I got to know David quite well and we became good friends, and of course he is now my leader. David, an only son, was born in Sheffield. His mother was Sheffield born and bred, whilst his father, a Polish soldier, had escaped from the German occupation of Poland, got to England where he joined the British Army. He served on active service in the 8th Army as they fought their way through Italy. David is very proud of his Polish heritage and accompanied his father on numerous occasions to Poland, following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Such visits always turned out to be the most enjoyable as he met family members and learned more about his heritage. David had a first-class education culminating in his degree in surveying, which enabled him to qualify as a chartered surveyor. As David would say, his career followed an enjoyable, fascinating, and well-paid career in property development, investment, and urban regeneration. And I would add, he had an illustrious career in his chosen field. He held many senior positions, both in the private sector and the public sector. To name but a few, he was director of the Royal Docks Regeneration Scheme in London. He was property director at Yorkshire Electricity PLC. He was Northern England Projects Director at the Urban Regeneration Agency, now the Homes and Community Agency. David married his Lancastrian wife, Linda, in 1979, and he's delighted that she's now an honorary Yorkshire lass. There is no doubt she will be a great support to David during his term of office, and I am certain she will be an excellent Lady Mayoress. David, like his father, has one son who, along with his wife and children, are in the hall today to witness this occasion. And I'm sure they'll be very proud of Dad and Grandad today. Being mayor of this city goes back many centuries, with the first mayor listed as Hugh de Selby in 1217. No one is sure when the title Lord Mayor became the norm, nor do we know how the Lord Mayor became the Right Honourable Lord Mayor. The history of the two titles is well lost in the mists of time. What I do know, however, in terms of civic proceedings, the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of York is second only to the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of London. David will join a very long list of mayors and Lord Mayors who have in different ways presided over the affairs of the city for over 800 years. For many years, the medieval mayor was the chief magistrate, and his courts dealt with every aspect of civil life, from apprenticeships, trading disputes, rumourmongers and counterfeiters, along with the ordering of removal of citizens' foul-smelling dung heaps, with many of the cases held in this hall. I am sure David will be more than pleased that such responsibilities are no longer part of his duties, especially the one removing citizens' foul-smelling dunghills. There have been many notable Lord Mayors over the last 800 years, both good and bad. Many of those Lord Mayors have left their mark on or in the city, the likes of George Hudson, George Lehman, Henry Rhodes Brown, who founded Browns of York, and finally, Edna Annie Crichton, the first Lady Mayor of York, who paved the way for other ladies to become the Lord Mayor. I must, however, mention Sir Robert Watter, who in 1603 purchased a beautiful gold chain to wear and impress as he welcomed James VI of Scotland, who travelled through York on his way to London to become James I of England. The chain was bequeathed to the city on the death of Sir Robert in 1612 to be used as the Lord Mayor's chain, and it has been used by every Lord Mayor since that bequest. The chain we see today on the current Lord Mayor and the chain that will eventually adorn the new Lord Mayor is that very chain. Finally, Lord Mayor, I would like to offer 2 pieces of advice to David and his team. The first is relax, chill out and go with the flow. You will certainly have a fantastic time. My second piece of advice is to take rest whenever you can. You are embarking on a demanding year, and rest will be very important to you all. Finally, Lord Mayor, it is very appropriate that I nominate David to be Lord Mayor. Not only is he my leader and my friend, but this is also my last annual meeting of council as a member. Lord Mayor and assembled throng, it is much pleasure that I formally move Councillor David Carr be elected as the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of our City of York for the current municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I invite Councillor Janet Looker, who will now second the motion.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. It gives me enormous pleasure, Lord Mayor. I always forget this bit. Lord Mayor, Lord Mayor's consort, Sheriff, Sheriff's consort, fellow councillors, friends, honoured guests, wonderful people of York, welcome to the Guildhall. And isn't it great to be back in the Guildhall? You can't think what pleasure it is giving me, and I know Councillor Galvin, to be back here where so many Lord Mayors have had their initial inaugural meeting. And like Councillor Galvin, I'm going to be very boring this year, terribly boring this year, because I'm going to keep telling people, oh, this is the last time I shall do this, or it's the last time I shall do that. And today is my last official attendance as a councillor at a Lord Mayor's Day. I may creep in at the back as an honoured guest or whatever, but this is my last one. So by golly, I'm going to make the most of it. But it gives me great pleasure to second Councillor Carr's nomination. When he asked me, I said it was a very special pleasure to do it for him. Councillor Carr and I had a brief but very interesting relationship, shall I say, early in his political career, when he became leader of the Conservative group and leader of the council, and I was at that point leader of the opposition. And there were, as there often are in council life, various issues that we needed to have to get each other, to sound each other out on. And I always found that Councillor Carr was scrupulous in sharing with me those things he felt I ought to be aware of, and those things he felt I should understand. Obviously, the decisions were his, and the decisions over what the Labour group did, well, they weren't mine, but they were the Labour group's decisions. But it was very useful and very helpful and very positive, and we gained a respect for each other. And it's that which brought me to throw in today my riff on the most famous speech of all. I should have started today, friends, only you're not Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, because the thing that has been haunting my mind over the last few weeks is that wonderful speech of Mark Antony's, one of the most famous that Shakespeare wrote, where you get the refrain, but Brutus is an honourable man. Mark Antony didn't mean it. Mark Antony was being sarcastic. Mark Antony was using it as a bit of rhetoric to try and win his point of view, and he was successful. But in actual fact, Brutus was an honourable man. And at the end of Julius Caesar, he is said to be the noblest Roman of them all, and he was. And I think The title of Right Honourable Lord Mayor will suit Councillor Carr so well because, in my opinion and my experience of him, he was and is an honourable man. And I think he will use this year well for the people of York. He will be distinguished in his service to the city. And I have enormous pleasure, Lord Mayor, in seconding his nomination. And I hope, David, you have an absolutely amazing time. And again, we're not just back in the Guildhall, you're back in the council chamber. And he's got the Jubilee. Oh, good Lord, what more could a Conservative gentleman want? So, all the very best, and my formal seconding of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Looker. All those in favour of the motion, please show. I think that's unanimous. I declare the motion carried and congratulate Councillor David Carr, who has been duly elected as Lord Mayor of the City of York for the municipal year 2022-2023.
Yeah, you stand there. Give me a script. Pass me a script. Pass me a script. Chain. Press. Press. Lady Mayoress will now exchange the chains of office. The Lord Mayor, Councillor David Carr, will now make his declaration of acceptance of office.
I, David Carr, having been elected to the office of Lord Mayor of the City of York, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof, according to the best of my judgment and ability.
The Lord Mayor will now take the oath of allegiance.
I, excuse me, I, David Carr, Lord Mayor of the City of York, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God. Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Lady, members of the Council, Honorary Aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to express my deepest thanks to Councillors Galvin and Councillor Looker, both of whom are former Lord Mayors, for their kind words in nominating and seconding my appointment as Lord Mayor today. I am, of course, delighted and thrilled to accept the great honour and privilege of this office. I would like to extend my gratitude to my wife, Linda, for agreeing to be Lady Mayoress, and to Susie Mercer and her daughter, Rebecca, for taking up the roles of Sheriff and Sheriff's Consort, respectively. I also want to pay a huge tribute to the outgoing Lord Mayor, Councillor Chris Culwick, and his civic party for all the work they have done for York during the past year, and especially for their supreme efforts in helping the city get back on its feet after the pandemic, which of course so bedeviled the early months of the mayoral year. My heartfelt thanks also go to my family, my friends and my colleagues who are present in this hall today, and those elsewhere for their support. And to save their embarrassment, I promise not to mention the names of my beautiful grandchildren, Master Noah Carr and Miss Emily Carr. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Finally, a big thank you to all the council officers whose skill and energy ensure this ceremony is a success that it is. I take my hat off to you all. Well, I would do if I was wearing it. And it is this ceremony which you are all witnessing today, which has been performed since the early 1200s, a tradition going back over 800 years. Traditions are important. Their symbols, rituals, and customs give us focus as a community, and they remind us that we are all mere brief parts of a long, long story. A continuum through which those who have lived before us speak to those who will live after us. Our ancestors speaking to us, and through us to our descendants. Traditions are important. And as we take up our roles, I want to say on behalf of the Civic Party that we look forward with great pride to being custodians of this office for this coming year. And we are custodians. We're not contestants, we're not competitors, we're not candidates. We are custodians of an office that goes back over 800 years, when this ancient city of York was the second city of the kingdom and a thriving centre of government, of religion, of the military, of culture and learning, and of trade, fashion and influence. It is still all of those things. And at a time when the great cities of the north of England, like Sheffield, Leeds, and Manchester, were mere hamlets, if indeed they existed at all. My mayoral year promises to be an auspicious one. We have finally emerged from the pandemic, and of course, it is Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee year. Moreover, the Council can once again meet in this magnificent place, the Guildhall, following its lengthy and extensive restoration. But on the other side of the coin, we can hear the drums of war beating in Europe. Again, a particularly poignant issue for me, as you've heard. And the malign spectres of inflation and recession are beginning to raise their heads with their pernicious effects on our economy and our finances. Although a pause in our relentless consumption as humankind might give the planet a little respite. It is the economic situation which will colour our strategy on the Lord Mayor's charities, which the Sheriff will be describing in more detail a little later. Finally, may I say to you all that over the coming year, the Civic Party and I will serve this great and ancient city and its citizens to the very best of our ability. I can assure you the mayoralty will be in very good hands. Thank you very much indeed. We now move to item 2 of the agenda, the ceremony for the appointment of Sheriff of York. Councillor Sue Hunter will now propose a motion for the appointment of Sheriff.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. May I be the first to congratulate you. It's with great pleasure that I nominate Susie. She's asked me to keep this short and sweet, so it won't be as long as our previous councillors. Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Lady, members of council, honorary aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and children. Susie was born and brought up in Leeds, regarded by Loyners as the unofficial capital of Yorkshire. Firstly living in Beeston, South Leeds, and then the family moved and settled in Shadwell, North Leeds, when she was 2 years old. Her father was a chartered surveyor and her mother his secretary, running their own business, so Susie's been well aware of the work ethics from a very early age. She enjoyed a very comfortable childhood, with some of her fondest memories that were spent with her school holidays on her uncle's farm, where she was collecting and naming wildflowers. This is an interest that continues to this day, and also helping her aunt prepare refreshments for the farm workers at a particularly busy time at harvest is where her interest in cooking sparked. And I can vouch for Susie's cakes, the designs and her cakes are absolutely beautiful. She attended Leeds Girls High School to 11 plus, and after passing 9 GCSEs and with no particular occupation in mind, she attended college and enrolled on a course in business studies, which she passed with distinction. She then embarked upon a career as a PA, working mainly in the property sector for CEOs and chairman at board level, which she says was very hard work, but enjoyable, extremely satisfying and rewarding, with some light-hearted moments along the way. Her position being very much a strong supportive role and one that will be in good stead for her forthcoming position. Susie came to York over 25 years ago, so I think we can class her as a bit of a Yorkie now, when her brother bought the Wentlock Arms in Weldrake. Susie was undertaking any and every job that was required, including being a barmaid, quiz writing, and a dolly dealer for the high-low game, and becoming very good at selling raffle tickets. I don't think she's selling any raffle tickets today, but look out for the charity events. When he sold the business and moved away, Susie settled in Weldrake, and this is where she continues to reside. I first met Susie when we were elected as ward councillors in 2015. Susie was elected at Weldrake, which is when we met and we worked together, both in our first term of office. And as we sat on area planning and went on site visits and with associated committee meetings, we spent quite a lot of time together. I've seen firsthand her conscientious attitude to work commitments, and I have therefore great pleasure in nominating her as Sheriff of the City of York.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Dave Taylor will now second the motion.
My Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, members of council, honorary aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must begin by saying what a pleasure it is for council to be meeting again in the confines of this superb Grade 1 listed Guildhall. It is a further pleasure, if I may receive pleasure twice in one morning, to second this proposal to elect Susie Mercer as Sheriff of York. I met Susie in 2015 when she was elected to the City of York Council for that term, 2015 to 2019. And we served on a couple of committees together during that time. It was in the final year of her tenure that disagreements within the Conservative Party in York led to her, and indeed David Carr, leaving their political party to become independent councillors. Well, I'm sure many of us can relate to that. Serious bit now. Susie has allowed me to share with you that she had a cancer scare in 2018. She was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to undergo surgery as well as further treatments. It must have been a very traumatic period of her life. Coming through that diagnosis successfully, I must underline, she was encouraged by her daughter Rebecca to reevaluate her lifestyle, to switch to more healthy eating choices, and has gradually adopted a fully vegan diet. Rebecca, who is also vegan, will be taking on the role of Sheriff's Consort in the coming year, assuming, of course, that this proposal gains consent from council. Susie's concern for animal welfare also extends to her caring for rescued dogs and rescued chickens. Susie Mercer is a very organised individual. We have heard this from her work history from Councillor Hunter. She will make a job of carrying on the tradition of Sheriff of York, a position which has existed since 1396. Many of us will be looking forward to the return of the assize of ale, as the sheriff's sergeants examine the quality of ale in the city's hostelries, a ceremonial customs and excise job which has been curtailed by COVID over the last years. We will enjoy the sheriff's mustering of an army to patrol the city walls as well, no doubt, and the return of many fundraising activities which have been so difficult in previous years for the two civic parties previous. Susie's reputed prowess at selling raffle tickets will undoubtedly become invaluable in the coming year. Susie, I wish you good health and good fortune, and I will therefore second this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Dave Taylor. May I ask those who are in favour of the motion to raise their hands? That does seem unanimous. I therefore declare the motion carried and Susie Mercer has been appointed as Sheriff of the City of York for the municipal year 2022 to 23.
Consorts will now exchange their chains of office. The Sheriff, Susie Mercer, will now take her declaration of acceptance of office.
I, Susie Mercer, having been appointed to the office of Sheriff of the City of York, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability.
The Sheriff will now take the oath of allegiance.
I, Susie Mercer, Sheriff of the City of York, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God. Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff's Consort, members of the Council, honorary aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, children. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for appointing me to be your Sheriff for the civic year 2022-2023. I am humbled and feel extremely privileged to be undertaking this long-held traditional post, as there has been a Sheriff for the City of York for more than 1,000 years. I would also like to express my thanks to Councillors Hunter and Taylor for their nomination and kind words. York is a very special city with many long-established historical traditions, which includes the Civic Party, and as such, it is valued highly by many people and organisations. With that in mind, I will undertake my duties with the utmost professionalism and dedication. When I told family and friends that I was to be Sheriff, there were the usual jokes about 6 guns, spurs, and a tin star. However, what I can confirm is that if I am to be riding a Mustang, it will have 4 wheels, not legs. Regarding our charitable activities throughout this year, as the Lord Mayor has stated in his acceptance speech, and in light of the economic and financial hardship that we all suddenly find ourselves in, and the impact this will have on smaller charities and the less wealthy generally, that for this mayoralty, the Civic Party will be departing somewhat from the convention of naming 2 or 3 well-known charities around which the Civic Party would base its funding. As the Lord Mayor has referenced, the present economic crisis is having a huge impact on household budgets and the charity sector generally, but especially on smaller charities and groups. We therefore want to find a way of supporting those who don't have sharp elbows, who don't have access to opinion formers, and who have little influence. In other words, the people who don't have a high profile and for whom a modest sum would be disproportionately welcome. The Civic Party will not therefore be identifying specific large charities at this time. It will instead be working with York-based 2 Ridings Community Foundation to establish a single charitable fund, the Lord Mayor's Appeal. At the end of the civic year, the collected funds will be distributed to a small number of charities and community groups who have requested support, and these will be selected by a panel comprising the Civic Party, Charity Committee, and 2 Ridings. We are intending to hold some innovative fundraising events throughout the year, which we hope you will be able to support. I am extremely grateful to my daughter Rebecca for agreeing to be my consort. I believe that her youth, determination and passion, coupled with a sense of fun, will be a great asset to the Civic Party. Thank you, councillors, for confirming me today. I am honoured to be Sheriff of York and will carry out my duties with energy, enthusiasm and dignity.
We now come to item 3 of the agenda, the appointment of Deputy Lord Mayor. I would like to thank Councillor Janet Looker for undertaking the role of Deputy Lord Mayor over the past year. And I move that Councillor Chris Culwick be elected as Deputy Lord Mayor of the City of York for the municipal year 2022 to 2023. Councillor Craghill will now second the motion. Thank you, Councillor Craghill. May I ask all those in favour of the motion to raise their hands? That again is unanimous. Pleased to say that the motion is carried.
The Deputy Lord Mayor will now take the declaration of acceptance of office.
I, Chris Culwick, having been elected to the office of Deputy Lord Mayor of the City of York, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability.
The Deputy Lord Mayor will now take the oath of allegiance.
I, Chris Culwick, Deputy Lord Mayor of the City of York, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, so help me God.
And so we move now to item 4 of the agenda, the appointment of the Under-Sheriff.
I have great pleasure in naming Gerald Neil Francis as our Under-Sheriff and wish to express my thanks to him for undertaking the office.
Thank you. And so on to item 5, the presentation of badges of office. Councillor Orrell will now propose a vote of thanks to the outgoing Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress. Councillor Orrell.
Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, Honorary Aldermen, Members of Council and our guests. I'm delighted to propose the vote of thanks to the outgoing Lord Mayor, Councillor Chris Culwick. Every mayoralty has different features. For Councillor Culwick, this has been particularly true. A much diluted mayor making a year ago, and they've missed many traditional events that are very special. But they've also missed the many community events that the Civic Party are invited to each year. Lockdowns have not deterred them, however, and they have used technology to do things that haven't happened in the past, to meet people virtually from all over the world. And they've had a clear determination to do everything possible to support all the people doing so much to help people throughout the pandemic. But there is now one visit to York that is now so poignant. The visit of a delegation from Lviv. We've all watched in horror at what is happening in Ukraine, but for Chris, it must have been even more real. I think it's important to record the help and welcome that has been given to the families coming to York from Ukraine by the host families, council officers, and organisations across the city. We can't heal their suffering, but we can make them welcome. No doubt Chris and Joy, Ashley and Dee will view the ending of their year with mixed emotions. I can tell you, there are two people here today who are very happy that Chris has now completed his municipal year. Councillor Runciman and I will be delighted to get our colleague fully back in our team. I say fully back because Chris has continued to deal with concerns of our residents, but the mayoralty is inevitably time-consuming. Chris, your focuses are waiting for you. Thank you, Chris and Joy, for all you've done for our city in the last year. So again, I'm delighted to propose the vote of thanks to you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Orrell. Councillor Pavlovich will now formally second the motion.
Thank you. I haven't written down all the introductions, so I'm going to have to try to remember them. Thank you, Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, members of council, honorary aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Wow. Right, I can get on to the real speech now. Thank you. When the now outgoing Lord Mayor, Chris, asked me to second the vote of thanks to the Civic Party, I was both deeply honoured and a little bit anxious. Not anxious about speaking, goodness knows I love the sound of my own voice, but because of the importance of the role of the Lord Mayor to the City of York. For hundreds of years, the Lord Mayor has been the embodiment of York, its public face and our first citizen. And our outgoing Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress, as Joy prefers to be described, have carried out their roles with dignity, kindness, and an uncomplaining willingness to be here, there, and everywhere. They've attended so many varied events, from formal dinners to opening an array of solar lights, which they did in Hull Road Park, for which I'm extremely grateful. Both the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress have an ease about them which people really relate to, and which make all around them relax and enjoy the occasion. It's a wonderful skill to have, and they both bring their backgrounds to bear in helping their audience to feel included. Chris, as an ordained minister, apparently the first priest ever to be appointed to the role of Lord Mayor. And by the way, if you know of another one, in medieval times, tell him, not me. And Joy, as a former psychotherapist and lecturer. This year has been very much a partnership by the whole Civic Party. The Lord Mayor may get the fancy robe and the big gold chains and most of the attention, and that's right. But I'd like to focus on the Lady Mayoress, whose role is often seen as supplementary. But without Joy alongside him, Chris has said that he would not have been able to have carried out all the responsibilities of office. She has taken the lead many times during this past year. Her background in psychotherapy meant she fully understood the impact coronavirus has had on people across the city and their mental health, and was passionate about organising and hosting a very successful Mansion House reception to thank mental health workers across the city for their contribution in supporting our mental well-being. Joy and Danielle further showed that they had been far more than merely plus ones, but rather had been a fundamental part of the partnership. They also hosted and organised the celebration of women to mark International Women's Day, and arranged for Dame Judi Dench to make a video appearance, which was a real coup to the city and added so much to the day. As was almost inevitable during this pandemic, both the Lord Mayor and Sheriff were isolating at the same time with COVID, yet the Lady Mayoress stepped into the breach, took over and ensured that the civic diary didn't have to be cancelled. So I think you will all agree with me that whilst the Lord Mayor understandably receives much of the kudos, this year has truly been a partnership of equals, and we should take time to thank the Lady Mayoress Joy for all her work this year. So it's with great pleasure that I wish to second the vote of thanks to the Lord Mayor and former outgoing Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress of York, whose dedication and commitment to their roles in another difficult year for society delivered an extremely successful and positive civic year for the people of York. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pavlovich. All those in favour, please show. Again, I'm pleased to say that's unanimous and the motion is therefore carried.
The Lord Mayor will now present the outgoing Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress with their badges of office. Outgoing Lord Mayor.
Deputy Lieutenant, Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, Alderman, councillors, distinguished guests, I think that's almost everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Well, just a few brief reflections. It's been a stop-start year. We'll all remember the limitations 12 months ago. And inevitably, as we've heard, many impacts on the civic diary, regular events cancelled, Yorkshire Day, Assize of Vales, Christmas cheer. But as a civic party, we were determined to focus on what could be done rather than what was not possible. We set about focusing on the needs of the city at a time when there was widespread experience of loss, and worked with many agencies, faith communities, and the hospice and others as the city began to come to terms with the loss of lives, loved ones, and livelihoods. But we also recognized and celebrated the dedication and sacrifice of so many frontline workers and volunteers. And just last week, at the reopening of this wonderful Guildhall, I was able to present a number of Lord Mayor's big thanks certificates to a range of charities and organizations. But this was only part of a much wider initiative of thanking those who went above and beyond. In the early months, listening to the experience of businesses, especially across the tourism and hospitality sector, we quickly learned of the challenges to recruitment and retention post-Brexit and as a result of the pandemic, and responded by hosting a hospitality summit, bringing together representatives of the industry as well as local training providers and interested parties. And I'm pleased that as a direct result of this, a number of productive initiatives emerged. As has been said, opportunities to represent York further afield, as civic parties in the past have done, were of course severely limited. However, technology enabled us to have a live link with New Zealand on Yorkshire Day, a video greeting to York in Western Australia on Anzac Day, and even participated in 2 Zoom worldwide conferences of the UNESCO Citizen Media Arts Network. As Councillor Orrell has said, it was in November last year that the Mayor of Lviv, Andriy Sadovyi, brought a delegation here, was warmly welcomed by me as Lord Mayor and by the leader of the council. None of us knew anything then of the events that were to begin to unfold just 3 months later. But this is a friendship the City of York is now committed to develop. Supporting the economy, highlighting new businesses, welcoming new investment, hosting a delegation from Bosch UK, another from the German rail industry, strengthening our links with the City of London through its livery companies. All these have been important through the year, as has working closely with the University of York, York St John University, York College and Askham Bryan. And as the Civic Party, we've taken up invitations from the Chamber of Commerce, the Federation of Small Businesses, York Independent Traders, officially opened many new businesses and events, from bakeries to care homes, from cafes to hotels. We re-established links with neighbouring civics, supported the historic guilds and companies of York in their important role, and supported a wide range of charities, attending a huge number of community events. And the Armed Forces Covenant was cherished, building on our strong links with the armed forces here in the city at Impfel and at Strensthal, visiting a field hospital on a training exercise, and celebrating 2 freedom parades, first with the Queen's Own Yeomanry and then 2 Signal Regiment, when we had the privilege of hosting the Princess Royal as Commander-in-Chief of 2 Signal Regiment. Our connection with the Royal Navy was also strengthened, visiting HMS Dragon in Portsmouth and welcoming the HMS York Funnel Plate, now proudly housed in West Offices. We've also shared many special times with York's veterans, thanks to the efforts of the wonderful Nick Bealby. As a civic party, we've engaged right across the city, from the police through to the Crown Court, from York Minster to York Mosque. And Yorkshire Day, hosted by Lord Derrimore's Primary School, was certainly a highlight, as was the reopening of Dringhouse's primary school library. The children were so excited to welcome their first guests in 2 years. So thank you. Thank you to fellow councillors for putting your trust in me. Thank you for all your support, and especially to my ward colleagues, Carol and Keith. Thank you for your kind vote of thanks. And thank you, Michael, too, for your kind words. Maintaining the vital civic life of the city is very much a team effort, and I thank every member of the team. To Margaret, along with Amy and Tash, we appreciate how hard you have worked behind the scenes in the civic office. To our civic support officers, Richard and Rich, who could not have taken better care of us, we are so fortunate to have them. To the Mansion House staff, who've played a key role. To the omnipresent Ben Fry as town crier, who could not have been more supportive. To Bridget Maynell, who's done a sterling job heading up our fundraising for our 3 local charities, York Mind, Sash and Wilberforce. Yes, fundraising has been challenging, with more events cancelled or postponed than actually going ahead, but nevertheless, we had several fantastic events, including our charity ball at the racecourse. And I want to thank Andrew Digwood as Under-Sheriff, who has been a vital member of the team throughout the year, stepping up and stepping in again and again, always reliable, personable, and great to work with. But of course, a special thanks to Ashley and to Danielle, who have been so committed in their roles whilst also working full-time. They've sought and taken every opportunity to serve and represent the city, and could not have been more fun to work with. And my thanks, above all, to Joy. I always knew she would make a great Lady Mayoress. She's certainly done that, and more. You could not have worked harder or given any more. And we both know I could not have done what I've done without your support. And as we now pass the baton to the new Civic Party, to David and Linda, to Susie and Rebecca, we wish them all the very best for the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colwick, and thank you for those kind words. Councillor Keith Aspen will now propose a vote of thanks to the outgoing Sheriff and Sheriff's Lady.
Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, members of council, honorary aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here today, as many others have said, back in the Guildhall, and to propose the vote of thanks to the outgoing Sheriff and Sheriff's Lady, Councillor Ashley Mason and Danielle Mason. It has been an incredible civic year, as you've heard earlier, and one in which I know Ashley and Danielle have played a full and active part. In the past 12 months, they have attended no less than 350 events and meetings representing the city at schools, local community events, businesses, and even the odd classic car show. Amongst these many engagements, I know that Ashley and Danielle have particularly enjoyed meeting over 100 young entrepreneurs and welcoming representatives from the City of London to see this newly refurbished Guildhall, which I understand they were very impressed with. I was a little surprised to not see the annual Fulford show on Ashley's list of memorable events of the year. I might forgive you, as will Werner Campbell as another former sheriff, but nonetheless, that event and many others have really shown the commitment that Ashley and Danielle have made, particularly their time to make people feel welcome and to support community groups, particularly those with young people, talking to local scout groups and meeting young soldiers. We know that York is a city of tradition, and Ashley has enjoyed keeping the traditions of Sheriff of York alive, such as the Sheriff's riding, albeit to his dismay, he did not get to ride a horse on that occasion. Similarly, if you know Ashley, you'll be aware that he has gathered quite a collection of stockings for his year as Sheriff, which unfortunately I will now leave to your imagination. Of course, with such a large number of engagements, Ashley and Danielle have had to adapt to the pressures of being Sheriff and Sheriff's Lady alongside their jobs, sometimes with Danielle having 12-hour shifts and night shifts. Fortunately, as you heard earlier, very much working as a team, they had the support of Chris and Joy and the Under-Sheriff Andrew Digwood, who also juggled his commitments alongside new civic responsibilities. Amongst their many successes in supporting the Lord Mayor's charities, York Mine, Sash and the Wilberforce Trust, Ashley and Danielle have also invested time with York CVS and both of the city's universities to help encourage more young people to take up civic leadership roles such as trustees, governors and magistrates. And they both, I know, look forward to carrying on that work. With all of that in mind, Lord Mayor, I'm delighted to formally move the vote of thanks to the outgoing Sheriff and Sheriff's Lady. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aspen. And Councillor Fitzpatrick will now formally second the motion.
Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, Honorary Aldermen, elected members, distinguished guests and guests. Ashley was keen to keep the Sheriff role relevant for the modern world, using social media to share what he and Danielle actually did in their roles and in the civic party in general. He was proud that a third of the year fell within Jubilee year, managing to secure 2 huge chocolate eggs, York Jubilee eggs, decorated with flowers and the insignia of the city and lieutenancy that were displayed at the Mansion House, then auctioned for the York Minster Fund. The Sheriff's Jubilee dinner raised £2,000 for St John's Ambulance and the Yorkshire Regiment Benevolent Trust. St John's Ambulance was particularly important to Ashley because the volunteers have given so much over the last 2 years with COVID. He loved involving more young people in civic life, including Jubilee tree planting in the museum gardens. The young people involved felt better able to approach him and Danielle and asked lots of questions about their role and the bling that they were wearing. Ashley made an effort to ensure the historic links to the judiciary are maintained, including welcoming 25 magistrates to the Mansion House who had retired during COVID, but had not had any form of special last day in court. Over 520 years of service were recognised. He spent time with the coroner and his team to hear about the impact of COVID, and another sad case of 2 men who had died in our rivers. It was enjoyable engaging with different religions during their special festivals. For example, breaking the fast at the mosque during Ramadan. I personally enjoyed attending the curry night at the Mumbai Lounge hosted by Ashley, and I sat with Ashley's mum and her friends. I've got lots of stories I could tell you about Ashley, but I'll leave that for another time. I also remember an occasion on the York Wall, seeing the sheriff come round with the Sheriff's Army as director of Red Tower. We were delighted to be able to welcome them to the people that were at Red Tower and the visitors on the walls as well. I would also like to say to Danielle, as has previously been mentioned, and Joy, how pleased I was to see them at Kira on International Women's Day. And to see them develop roles in their own right. Absolutely, that is quite correct. You're not just an adjunct to the men in your life. So I think at this point, really, Ashley and Danielle are both now looking forward to a well-deserved holiday in Spain, flying out tomorrow. Before I finish, I actually want to say something about the Lord Mayor and the Civic Party in general that I personally am very pleased about. A very good friend of mine married a Jamaican lady within the last year and had massive difficulty getting her to be allowed to live in this country. When eventually that happened, she was very nervous about how she might be received because of all the difficulties she'd had in actually getting into the country. So I approached the Lord Mayor and asked, could she have, if we could arrange some sort of ceremony where she could be welcomed with her husband to the Mansion House. He was only too generous in giving his time to do this. And she was delighted to have lots of photographs taken in the Mansion House alongside the Lord Mayor. And that photograph, now the main photograph, was centre stage in the Jamaican Gleaner when she went back home to Jamaica. So personal thanks there. I think it is important that we do welcome visitors to the city, as we have said, and that was something that I was particularly personally pleased about. Thank you, Ashley and Danielle, for a year to be proud of, and I take great pleasure in seconding you in the thanks for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzpatrick. Now, may I see those in favour, please? Again, that's unanimous and the motion is carried.
The Lord Mayor will now present the outgoing Sheriff and Sheriff's Lady with their badges of office. Badge for the Sheriff. Outgoing Sheriff. Yeah, that's good.
Deputy Lieutenant, Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, Sheriff, Sheriff's Consort, members of Council, Honorary Aldermen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and children, which is great to see. The first thing, obviously, I'm going to talk about is forfeiture and what a great time we did have when we did visit. No, Lord Mayor, what a year. York is really fortunate and rare in having its own shrievalty. But as we've heard, it's all about keeping it relevant. And this has taken many forms, I suppose, for me. It's been outward looking, as we've heard, bringing people to York, bringing businesses to York, showing off our city, through to arranging an event for 100 young entrepreneurs and inviting younger people to take part in some of our civic events. Alongside always being keen to spot opportunities and linking people up where we can see the potential for positive benefit. Also, as touched on, my work with York CVS and the universities, where we've been developing resources and tools to empower more young people to take on those civic leadership positions. And now potentially we're looking at having a government grant to move that forward. We've used social media as much as we can to try and engage with people and show them what we're doing and hopefully dispel the myth that it's not all black tie dinners. We've made good use of the Mansion House where possible, from having the street cleaners in for breakfast, pizza with children in care, through to thanking retiring magistrates, mental health professionals, recognising volunteer youth leaders. Given the limited use of the house that the Civic Party do have, the apartments become the centre of civic work. It's a place to bring people for a cup of tea to say thank you, a place to hold meetings, somewhere to rest on a busy day, an office, a changing room very often. We invited many people to the apartment for dinner at our own expense to recognise them for their work, from students, student leaders, to those conserving the city's heritage. We even hosted Baroness Hale, former President of the Supreme Court, who sent me a lovely email thanking me for her bangers and mash. There's a reason that I'm probably the youngest sheriff in 625 years, and it's incredibly hard to take up civic office when you are young, for many reasons, not least the continued need to earn some money. But hopefully the support that we've had from all those people really have made that possible and those challenges. And I'm afraid now it's all the thank yous that you've already heard from the Lord Mayor, but with a slightly different tone. So thank you, Chris and Joy, for allowing us to serve the city with you. Your strength, commitment to the role, both shown such phenomenal dedication. York really has been privileged to have such a kind of dynamic, caring, engaging and lovely Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress. Secondly, we've already heard about my Under Sheriff Andrew Digwood, but without Andrew's support, it wouldn't have been possible to be a working sheriff. Andrew obviously has represented me when work commitments have got in the way, but also when me and the Lord Mayor did have a short spell of isolating. So thank you, Andrew, for everything you've done. You've gone well above and beyond what would normally be expected of your role. And actually at the Mansion House this morning, we presented Andrew with a plaque to thank him for his service, because Andrew doesn't get a little badge, I'm afraid. Thank you to our employers and thank you to our ward colleagues. Councillor Fenton, as always, is a staunch hard worker, and I'm looking forward to getting back to be able to join him a bit more. We've had great civic support, Margaret, Amy and Tash, and it's fair to say the civic office is a busy place and needs to be properly resourced and supported. And they've done such a good job at trying to keep up with our busy schedules and the challenge of having to work around us both being working or Danielle coming off a night shift. Our amazing civic support officers, again, as Chris said, have given us great care and attention. Even on one occasion, one of them stepping in when a lady thought it was Boris Johnson and wanted to talk to me. The team at the Mansion House, again, have been fantastic. And Isaac's name is a name that often appears in our visitor books at the end of the day from his excellent tours. So thank you to all the staff there that make using that house as a civic space possible. Outside of the council, obviously there's lots of other people that support us and make things tick. The Lord Lieutenant, the Vice Lord Lieutenant, Michael, the Acting Dean and Chapter have been great. The guilds and companies, the businesses, so many people really, and too many to go through and thank. Chris has touched on our fundraising and the challenges that's brought, and we've had some great events, but it has been a challenge. I think particularly our chair, Bridget, deserves so much recognition because it's a thankless task, having done it myself. Chair sounds very glorious, but actually you're the doer and you've got to make things work. So thank you to Bridget for all you've done. Danielle, everyone needs some support, and you know, without having that support, it would be so hard to be an effective sheriff. And I've been so pleased that you and Joy have both worked in your own right and been so successful in your own right. And like we said, not just plus ones, but independent office holders. Without Danielle's constant attention, support, love, counsel, pulling me back, telling me off, it really would have made life so much harder. So thank you, Danielle, so much for all the time you've given, often having 3 hours sleep after finishing at 7 o'clock and jumping in the car at 10, doing a makeup in the car and trying not to fall asleep halfway through the day, or having a mini sleep in the apartment. It's been really phenomenal. You know, I've worked 9 to 5 pretty much, but working shifts has been a real challenge. So well done. A phrase I often say is it's the Civic Party's job to make other people feel special. And that's something I think we've really enjoyed doing, where we can really make an impact. I know not everybody in the room, and it's been said by all people of political parties when they retire, value civic leadership. But we've seen this year how much York people really do value civic leadership, and they value the Lord Mayor and the Sheriff, and they've got lots of civic pride. And I get that it's hard sometimes for members to put down how you numerically value the impact that the Civic Party makes during the year, but it is such an important asset to the city, and I can assure you it isn't just all dinners and posh drinks. It's meeting, like we've said, soldiers, it's meeting community leaders, volunteers, celebrating religious festivals. You know, it's all of those things, and it's really important that we retain it as we can. Finally, to thank the sheriff, new sheriff, sorry, over there now, looking at the alderman. Well done on your appointment. I was always pleased during my time with the sheriff when we ever did any parades. We were both M's, so we both stood together. So we've had lots of parades together. So I know you've got that bit nailed, but I hope you have a great year. From the conversations we've had, it sounds like you've got some really exciting plans. And it's great as well to see Rebecca keeping some youth in the Civic Party. I mean that in the nicest way. It's been really interesting seeing how different young people come and interact with us, ask about the bling, and I'm sure you'll find that you keep that alive and hopefully keep some social mediaing alive as well. So thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, members of council. It's been a fantastic year, and we look forward to your luncheon soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason, and thank you for your good wishes. We now come to item 6, which is the formal business of the meeting, namely the allocation of places and councillors to committees and other bodies for the year 2022 to 2023. All the details of proposed appointments are shown in the published papers for the meeting. In addition, there are some minor updates to committee memberships, which have been circulated to members of the council at the Guildhall this morning. Before I ask Councillor Aspen, as leader of the council, to move this formal business, I would like council to note that we have a number of apologies for today's meeting. They are Councillors Barnes, Heaton, Lomas, Musson, Rowley, Wan and Webb. Could I ask Councillor Aspen, as leader of the council, to move the formal business as set out in the published papers and the update sheet circulated at this meeting this morning? Councillor Aspen. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor de Gorn. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Yes, please do.
Members of council, we've also received an apology from Councillor Wan and Councillor Melly. I've also received notification that in accordance with council's wish and the appointment of substitute members from parish councils for the Joint Standards Committee, the York Local Councils Association confirmed yesterday evening that they will now commence a ballot to seek appointments for substitute members for the parish council representatives on the Joint Standards Committee. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So to go back then, does any member wish to speak on the motion proposed by Councillor Aspen and seconded by Councillor de Gorn? Councillor Douglas.
I'm Councillor Douglas, the leader of the Labour group. The Lord Mayor on his appointment and wish him well for the coming year, the first year of full civic calendar since 2019. I would also like to apologise to him that for a second year in a row, the Labour group of councillors feel unable to fully support elements of the allocations and appointments to some committees on the agenda today. I have tried to remedy these disagreements before this meeting today without success. The Labour group will be voting against the appointments to planning committees A and B. We are unable to support all of the named appointments following a public incident some days ago where a member named on the committees called into question their belief in the impartiality and integrity of decision-making on City of York Council planning committees and the committee members. We believe this person's membership of the committee is untenable. I have asked the member's group leader to replace the appointment with another member, and this has been refused. The Labour group will not be naming the member, so due process can take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. I believe also that Councillor Crawshaw would wish to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your new role. I'm sure you will be a great ambassador for York. I'm afraid I'm not going to address everybody else in the room by all your various titles because we only have 3 minutes to speak and you're all equally welcome as far as I'm concerned. I am, however, going to apologise to you all on behalf of Councillor Aspden and Councillor de Gorn, the leaders of the Liberal Democrat and Green groups respectively, who have once again placed the Labour group in the unenviable position of having to interrupt the day's pleasantries in order to make a case for upholding democratic processes in our city. This could and should have been resolved before today, but it's too important for us to allow it to slide. Lord Mayor, in a moment we are going to be asked to approve the allocation of seats and appointments to the Council's various committees. In previous years, this has been largely uncontentious because no matter the political makeup of the administration, there has been an understanding that trust, fairness and decency are important values in a healthy democracy. Not so anymore, it would seem. Whether in Westminster or West offices, we seem to live in a world where political expediency is king and the ends will always be used as justification for the means. The last elections left City of York Council with no party in overall control, and yet on the committee that I chair, the Council's Statutory Scrutiny Committee, over the past 18 months, the Green Party have repeatedly gifted their place to the Liberal Democrat group, thereby granting them a disproportionate voting majority. This is despite there being a principle that the makeup of council committees should reflect or be proportionate to the political makeup of the council. Councillor Aspden and Councillor de Gorn now intend to put in place the same arrangement on the Council's Audit and Governance Committee, a committee previously described by the Monitoring Officer as being the Council's whistleblowers-in-chief. To underline to you what is going on, this will mean that Councillor Aspden, the Council leader previously found by our independent auditors to have misused public money for political expediency, can now engineer situations where he will never lose a vote on the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee, the Statutory Scrutiny Committee, or the Audit and Governance Committee. And yet on the Council, the Liberal Democrats do not have a majority. Of course, we are told that this is all perfectly lawful, or perhaps I should say perfectly not technically unlawful. But when the Council's own legal advice makes clear that such arrangements might reasonably be considered to be contrary to the spirit and purpose of the legislation, one has to question the integrity of those who are complicit in this. When taken in the context of last year's incredibly damaging public interest report, one of only 5 issued in England in the previous 5 years, and yet the second one issued to York during that time, this is akin to putting 2 fingers up to the Local Government Association, who were asked to intervene following the auditor's findings, and subsequently described the culture at the City of York Council as toxic. Lord Mayor, those of us who care about democracy must stand up when it counts. Spirit and purpose matters. So it appalls me that whether or not it's on the public interest report, the constitution or committee allocations, people whom I have previously had respect for seem only too willing to compromise their integrity for their own political expediency. It is embarrassing to be in this situation today. I apologise again to everybody gathered today.
I've given you sufficient time.
Support these appointments.
Thank you for making those points, but I think you've had sufficient time. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to confer with the Deputy Town Clerk at this point on the way forward. Take a vote on each of those again. So thank you, councillors Crawshaw and Douglas. I do note your remarks, and I'm sorry I had to cut you short, councillor Crawshaw, but time is pressing. It appears that we have to take a vote on each of those committees that have been raised by the two Labour members here. So I'm going to take a vote. Please indicate for, against, or abstain, starting with Planning Committee A. All those for. Okay. And all those against, please. And any abstentions, please? Thank you. The Deputy Town Clerk will give me the...
So I can confirm, Lord Mayor, that the allocations as published in the agenda remains standing.
Okay, thank you. Can we do the same vote again then, please, for Planning Committee B? Those for, please raise their hands. Okay. And those against, please. Thank you. And any abstentions, please? Deputy Town Clerk.
Lord Mayor, I can confirm that the allocations as printed in the agenda do stand.
Thank you. We now move to the Customer and Corporate Services Scrutiny Committee. Again, those for as recorded in the agenda, please. And those against, please. And any abstentions? Thank you. Deputy Town Clerk.
Lord Mayor, I can confirm that the allocations as printed in the agenda do stand.
Thank you. We now move to the Housing Scrutiny Committee. Again, those for, please. And those against, please. And of course, any abstentions, please.
Lord Mayor, I can confirm that the allocations as printed in the agenda do stand.
Thank you. And we move to Audit and Governance Committee. Again, those in favour, please. And those against, please. And any abstentions? No.
And Lord Mayor, I can confirm that the allocations as printed in the agenda do stand.
Thank you, Deputy Town Clerk. And the final one is the final vote on all the remaining appointments as scheduled in the papers this morning. Those for? Okay. Those against? And any abstentions, please? Okay. Thank you, members. That seems pretty unanimous. Yes. I will now move to a vote on the original motion as proposed by Councillor Aspin and seconded by Councillor de Gaulle. Could all those wishing to vote for the original motion please show your hands now? Those against? Those members wishing to abstain? Deputy Town Clerk.
I can confirm that the motion is carried, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So the motion is carried, and there being no further business this morning, I declare this annual council meeting closed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much indeed.